Mr. Mayor, we are absolutely honored and delighted that you have joined us here in London from Athens. And I think I have to start by saying, the very name of your great city comes from the goddess Athena, who of course represents in mythological tradition wisdom and knowledge and strength, the importance of the creative arts as well as strength. And we can see her symbol really migrating throughout the world on our buildings and things. And fast forward, I think that she symbolizes innovation and what it means to the sustainability and next generation of life in a city. I don't know if you know this, but just a little bit of history on me. I'm a Mycenaean and Minoan scholar for many years ago. That's my love. And when all of you go to the Acropolis, the fabulous new Museum of Sculpture, remember that in the actual walls of the Acropolis, the Mycenaeans were there in the Bronze Age. So the tradition and history of Athens as this great city that, of course, was also the foundation of our democracy, the role of citizens, as well as philosophy, all the foundations of culture that have enriched our lives for centuries make this one of our most treasured places in human history and civilization. You've been the mayor starting in 2010 and re-elected in 2014. I know you were born in New York and you educated in Paris, so you're truly a global citizen. But let's just start out, if you could share with us, at a time of great challenges in your country and your city, what really is your vision for what you think you can do as mayor to harness this tremendous sacred trust of Athens as one of our foundational cities of the world moving into the 21st century?
Well, the most important challenge is to make Athens an example for the rest of my country. Because you know that my country is in a deep economic crisis. Now it's the 7th, 8th year of recession. So Athens, my city, has suffered almost every consequence of this crisis. Not only economic crisis, but a deep distrust towards the political system, a rise of populism and of intolerance rhetoric. And now we have, last blow is the refugee issue. So what we have to do is, I dedicated my first term from 2010 to 2014, I dedicated it to help the city stay on its feet, let's say. That means help the society, because suddenly we had many people that needed help, people that only a few weeks ago, a few days ago, had their job, had their house, and suddenly from one day to another, they found themselves in a great need. And on the other side was to make economies in the municipalities so that we could keep it functioning and offering services to the citizens. So that was the major challenge in my first term. So that is why we put the accent, we focused mainly on the offering relief to people and making economies in the municipality. I had to pay very important bank loans. We had to pay the suppliers because we had public calls and they didn't come because they were not paid. So we started with, let's say, as an example, debt to the banks of 220 million euros. And at the end of my second term, 2019, it will be less than 30 million euros. That's what I mean, try to give the example. And the rest, now the second term, is we tried securing European funding from European structural funds to help create jobs in the city, promote entrepreneurship, promote innovation, and promote tourism, among other things. Unfortunately, we had to cope now with the refugee crisis, but we try to be optimists and see this crisis, let's say, as an opportunity to, I don't know, to have these people that many of them are going to stay in Greece, rather, use them, use their force, their energy to, in order to promote business and growth in my city.
You know, speaking of the refugee crisis, and again, going back into your history and culture in Greece, your tradition of hospitality and welcoming and taking care of strangers is, immortalized in the Odyssey and Iliad. What did you find as the mayor? How were you able to marshal the individual citizens in Athens who've really stepped up and have played a role in this? Or was that kind of just a indigenous happening? Or was it something that had, top down? Or did people really come to you and your team and say, we want to help? How? Because you've really done amazing things on dealing with the refugee crisis without a lot of resources.
Oh, yes. Well, in the summer of 2015, suddenly people started arriving massively to the islands near Turkey and then directly to Athens. There are, according to very valid estimation, we have had more than 900,000 people passing from Athens, going to the north to the border, until the border closed in the month of March. So now, hospitality, we have to be very careful with those issues. I mean, we Greeks are very sentimental people, but you cannot trust on sentiment and, philanthropy, those issues, because this can change from one day to another. The mood of the people, their perceptions can change. So we have to be very practical, very methodical. So the first thing that I had to do when we saw what was happening was to offer land so that we could build there the first refugee camp. And at the same time give the example to the rest of the cities what they should do. Because there is always in those cases the not in my backyard perception of things. And the second thing is to try now to participate in the relocation program through a program run by the United Nations Commissioner for Refugees, where the program is that we are renting apartments, putting there people who are going to be relocated to other European countries, try to disperse them in the city, and at the same time try to not create fear among the population, because all of those stereotypes. So we have worked in a very methodic and organized way, creating teams of 3 persons, social worker, a doctor, and the manager of the apartments, going to the neighborhood, informing people what's going on, how they should behave, and at the same time offering vouchers to the refugees so that they could spend their money in the neighborhood, so create incentives for people to receive them well. Anyway, the big obstacle here is that those people don't want to stay in Greece. Why? Because of the economic crisis. And many of them have their relatives in other European countries, but now they are trapped in Greece. And the second thing is that you cannot create jobs as easily as in other European countries. Why? Because of the economic crisis. So we have a problem of integrating those people, but we have to try very hard.
So, well, first of all, congratulations. I know we're all thinking with your leadership and what Greece has done on the refugee crisis, that it truly is something that was from the heart, but also made a huge difference in that. But let's turn to job creation and growth. And, I lived in Athens many, many years ago, and I consider it my second home in terms of living in a city. But I've been in Athens many times when there have been strikes and where things have, stopped down and this and that. Do you see as a result of the crisis that there may be some change in some of the traditional obstacles for starting up businesses and entrepreneurship, getting rid of some of the red tape? And what can you do as a mayor to stimulate economic growth versus what the federal government is doing, given that Athens is really the center of the nation?
Well, legally speaking, very few things, because Athens is Greece. It's a highly centralized state, and the municipalities have very few competences. And that is one of the reasons why we have entered in this deep economic crisis. Anyway, one thing a mayor can do is bring many forces together and try to create opportunities by bringing people together. So what we try to do is almost in every important field, whether it is culture, whether it is tourism, where we are doing many things, where it's the rest of creating business and entrepreneurship, bring together all the stakeholders. And at the same time, we have managed to bring an important sum of European funds so that we could promote projects of innovation and entrepreneurship, especially the recipients, young people. You know, people who have some ideas, they want to have a startup, so the municipality can go there and organize the whole thing, bring them together through mentoring, offering space, creating innovative hubs. We have created a good innovative hub in Athens, the municipality, those things. But concerning tourism, well, in order to have an attractive for the tourists, people, one thing is to have a proper city, a very clean city. And unfortunately, that's not the case. That's why, because in those questions we have to go through our traditional channels and the traditional bureaucracy. And that is one of the major problems in my city. Very, very little progress has been made towards this direction. We have a judiciary that moves very slowly. You have a central administration and local administration that's very heavy procedures. And because now of the economic crisis, more and more controls from the central state. So what we need to do is a reform that will eliminate bureaucracy and red tape. For the rest, whenever we can bypass those traditional channels and bring people together, and we have managed it through our development agency, I think we have performed very, very well.
Well, you know, Greek citizens in Athens and around the world are pretty fabulous innovators in information technology and the digital revolution. And you have, you know, some tremendous universities in Athens and the technical universities. I mean, we're very proud in the United States that a number of our university presidents are first generation Greek Americans who've come and are leading great universities. What could you do as mayor to jumpstart and stimulate somehow Athens becoming almost a test bed for the seamless city and connecting everything with your young millennial IT experts who are again, very, very innovative? And is that something you could do as a mayor to jumpstart that?
Yes, the first thing to do is, you know, one of the major consequences of the crisis is the brain drainage. We lose tens of thousands of young Greek, smart, intelligent people who go abroad. So the major challenge is to keep them in the city. So what we try to do is, as I told you, work on programs on innovation and help them develop. Whoever has an idea, his startup. And on the other hand, trying to be innovative in the procedures that we adopt in the municipality. We have created an urban lab. Let's say we have some old buildings, municipal buildings, renovating them. So we call all the architects and many people, and we offer space there. And we make public consultations and try to see what we could do there. And on the other hand, we have a platform, an electronic platform that won an award, an international award from Eurocities, few days ago, and from the Bloomberg
Yes.
Philanthropies Award 2 years ago, where we find all the groups formed by, especially by young people in the city. We bring them together, and we bring them together with the municipal services so that we can learn from what they are doing in the city, because they do many things on their own initiative, and we could help them learn and channel them what to do in the city. So it's offer opportunities to young people. But if we don't have economic growth coming from the central state, who is the responsible for the economic policy, the less of us will have to struggle and struggle and struggle.
So I know in our time, I just have two things I thought we'd quickly cover. On the optimistic side, you know, if you are reelected yet again and you can think forward maybe 5 years, what is really on the horizon that you feel very positive about? I mean, the refugee situation is getting better. It's still a crisis compared to what it was, I mean, in the beginning. But what do you see really as the positive light forward and in your role as mayor that will be part of your legacy?
Well, I hope to be mayor in a city that will be the capital of a country that has learned from the past, from the errors of the past. Because we have to do everything the other way, differently from what we have done till now. We had the state-driven economy. So we have to create now partnerships, what we try to do in our case, with private companies, with the academia, with the NGOs. I would like to have a sustainable and inclusive city, because what we see happening around in the world, the panel before discussed a little bit about it, I don't know, but I'm very anxious. You see, you go to bed with Remain, you wake up with Brexit, you go to bed with Hillary Clinton that's going to be elected as a president, you wake up with Donald Trump. We don't know what's going to happen with the referendum in Italy and everything like that. We have to admit that something has gone wrong. Very, very wrong. There is a global crisis. We see the rise of populism. We see people that are very angry. They feel they have been left behind. So we have had growth, let's say, in the United States, but it was not distributed fairly. So we have to do something about it. We have to distribute in a more fair way. We have inclusive growth. That is the answer, I think. Because if not, I'm very much anxious and afraid of what's going to happen.
Well, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that we'd like to talk to you on behalf of the Global Federation of Competitiveness Council. We're very proud of our distinguished fellows from Greece, a number of whom are here today, and our colleague Lucas Papademos, the former Prime Minister, could not be with us. But we would like to work with you to actually, as a first ever, have a city competitiveness council that you might chair in Athens that would bring together CEOs, the university presidents, some of these dynamic young millennials, and put that together as a leadership group to actually begin to address and tackle some of these issues. That's very inclusive and very open. And in parallel, I think, work with the leaderships at the federal government. But given Athens' centrality to Greece, I think the leadership of the city could really be very powerful to have a private sector growth strategy. Because at the end of the day, there's tremendous untapped potential for innovation in this great city. So we hope to bring the GFCC to Greece in the next few years, and in the meantime, if you're willing and want to work with you on a competitiveness council for the city of Athens.
I think it's a wonderful idea. We have created, and now it's started becoming very active, a municipal business council for the city, and I think that the competitiveness can work together with that in a perfect way.
Thank you, and we're very honored you could be with us, and look
Thank you
forward
for
to
inviting me.
having you.